They were still blinking. That's what engine technician Raymond Mercer reported when he found the perfectly preserved human eyes inside the GE9X turbine of a Boeing 777-9 during routine maintenance at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. The eyes weren't damaged, decayed, or even dried out. They were intact, moist, and, according to Mercer's horrified testimony, they followed his movements as he worked on the engine. Marcus Whitfield has been an aviation accident investigator for 27 years, examining wreckage, analyzing data, and determining causes for crashes that have claimed thousands of lives. In all those years, he never encountered anything like the incident that began on October 18, 2023, which would become known in hushed whispers among maintenance crews as the watching engine. I've seen bodies after crashes.
I've seen things you can't imagine, Whitfield told me, his hands trembling slightly as he lit a cigarette despite having quit smoking 15 years ago. But I've never seen anything that defied explanation like those eyes. Eyes that shouldn't have been there. Eyes that shouldn't have been functioning. Eyes that belonged to a girl who vanished 3,000 miles away. Transglobal Airlines Flight TG-1123 had arrived from San Francisco International Airport after an uneventful 5-hour flight. The Boeing 777-9X was scheduled for routine maintenance before its next journey to London Heathrow. Nothing seemed amiss as the maintenance crew began their checks. The aircraft had performed flawlessly during its service life of just 14 months. Pilots reported no anomalies. The maintenance logs were spotless. Raymond Mercer, 42, had been servicing jet engines for 19 years. His colleagues described him as methodical, precise, and unflappable.
"Ray doesn't get spooked," said Thomas Welch, his supervisor. "He once had a compressor blade nearly take his arm off during inspection and didn't even raise his voice. So when I heard him screaming from inside the engine housing, I knew something was terribly wrong." It was 3:27 in the morning when Mercer's screams echoed across the maintenance hangar. Two mechanics rushed to the engine, where they found Mercer backed against the far wall, hyperventilating, pointing at the partially disassembled turbine. "They're watching me," he kept repeating. "They're watching me." The mechanics initially believed Mercer was having a psychological episode. Perhaps the stress of the job had finally caught up with him. But when Edwin Cooper, a senior technician, peered into the engine with his flashlight, he too recoiled in horror. "There were eyes," Cooper stated in his official report. "Human eyes, embedded within the fan blades assembly, between the Stage 2 and Stage 3 compressor. They were blue, intact, and they moved. They blinked. They tracked my flashlight beam." This is where the story would normally end, with a prank or a misidentification. Perhaps the eyes were merely some unusual reflection or a strange fungal growth that merely resembled human organs. The maintenance team would have a laugh, Mercer would be embarrassed, and work would continue. But what happened next transformed this incident from an odd anecdote into something far more disturbing. Security was called, the engine was cordoned off, and within 2 hours, representatives from the FAA, the NTSB, and even the FBI had arrived at the hangar. The aircraft was placed under guard, and everyone present was instructed not to speak about what they had seen. Dr. Cohn, Eleanor Reese, a forensic pathologist who was called to the scene, made the initial examination of the anomaly at 5:00 that morning. "I've been handling human remains for 22 years, she said, her clinical tone belying the nature of her discovery. These were, without question, human eyes, female based on the size and shape, Caucasian, blue-irised, and they were functional. The pupils dilated when I shone my penlight. The corneal reflex was intact. They blinked approximately every 4 to 6 seconds. The implications were staggering. Human eyes, removed from a body, shouldn't be capable of movement. The complex network of muscles, nerves, and blood vessels required for ocular function cannot operate independently. Yet here they were, embedded in the metal of a jet engine, apparently alive. But the true horror was yet to come. DNA samples were taken from the tissue and rushed to the FBI laboratory in Quantico. The results came back within 72 hours, and they sent shockwaves through the investigation team.
The eyes belonged to Olivia Lancaster, a 16-year-old girl who had disappeared from her home in Portland, Oregon, 3 weeks earlier. Lancaster had vanished while walking home from school on September 26th. Security camera footage showed her turning a corner, and then nothing. No trace, no sightings, no activity on her social media or bank accounts. Her case had generated substantial media attention, but there had been no leads, until her eyes were found inside a jet engine on the opposite side of the country. There was, of course, an immediate and obvious question. How could parts of a missing girl from Oregon end up inside an engine in Georgia? The aircraft's maintenance and flight logs were meticulously reviewed. At no point had the plane been anywhere near Portland. In fact, the engine in question had been sealed and certified after its last inspection 3 weeks before Lancaster's disappearance. It was physically impossible, explained Dr. Richard Hammond, an aerospace engineer who consulted on the investigation. That engine component hadn't been opened since its factory installation. And even if, somehow, someone had managed to access it, there's no way to place organic material inside without disrupting the intricate mechanics. The eyes weren't sitting on a surface. They were integrated into the metal, as if they had grown there. As the investigation deepened, more disturbing details emerged. The eyes exhibited unusual properties. They maintained their moisture without any apparent source of lubrication. They remained at human body temperature despite being embedded in cold metal. And, most distressingly, according to multiple witnesses, they seemed to recognize certain individuals.
When Mercer re-entered the hangar, they fixed on him immediately, stated FBI agent Caroline Martinez. We had 20 people moving around that engine, but the eyes tracked him specifically. When we brought in Lancaster's parents, the eyes, they welled up with tears. Tests confirmed the impossible. The tears were genuine human tears, with a chemical composition matching normal human lacrimal fluid. And they only appeared when certain people were present. Despite the placement of a security detail, rumors began to spread among the airport staff. Maintenance workers refused to enter the hangar. Pilots requested reassignment when they learned their scheduled aircraft was being kept in proximity to TG-1123. Eventually, the decision was made to move the entire aircraft to a secure facility at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. But before this could happen, on the 5th night of the investigation, a new development rocked the already shell-shocked team. The eyes spoke. At 2:14 in the morning, the 2 security guards stationed inside the hangar reported hearing a female voice emanating from the direction of the engine. The voice was described as young, frightened, and distant, like it was coming through a tunnel. The audio was captured on the hangar's security system. "Help me," the voice said. "I can see you. I can see everyone. Please help me." When investigators rushed to the scene, the eyes were found to be moving more rapidly than before, darting back and forth in apparent panic. Tears flowed freely down the metal surface of the turbine. "Please," the voice came again, clearly emanating from the eyes themselves, though they had no visible mouth or vocal apparatus. "I don't know where the rest of me is." At this point, I must acknowledge that many readers will find this account difficult to believe. I myself would be skeptical had I not reviewed the extensive documentation, interviewed the witnesses, and, most convincingly, seen the secured footage recorded by the FBI. The eyes of Olivia Lancaster, somehow still living, still conscious, were embedded in the engine, and they were desperately trying to communicate. A team of specialists was assembled: forensic experts, aviation mechanics, medical professionals, and paranormal researchers. Yes, paranormal researchers. By this point, conventional science had failed to provide explanations, and the investigation was grasping for answers. Dr. Helena Mastriani, a neurologist specializing in consciousness studies, proposed a radical theory. "Consciousness isn't necessarily confined to the brain," she explained during a closed briefing. "There's a growing body of research suggesting it may be quantum in nature, potentially able to exist beyond the traditional boundaries of our anatomy." What we may be witnessing is a case of consciousness fragmentation. Pieces of Olivia Lancaster's awareness somehow attached to parts of her physical form, even when separated.
It was a fringe theory at best, but it was all they had. And it still didn't explain how the eyes had materialized inside a sealed engine. Engineers began a painstaking process of examining every millimeter of the engine, particularly around the embedded eyes. Using specialized imaging equipment, they discovered something that sent ripples of dread through the investigation team. The eyes weren't the only human tissue present. Microscopic filaments, invisible to the naked eye but detectable under specialized scanning, extended throughout the engine. They resembled human nerve cells, spreading like roots through the metal components, integrating with the wiring, the hydraulics, the very structure of the machine. It's as if parts of her nervous system had somehow merged with the aircraft systems, Dr. Godoff.
Hammond stated, the scientific detachment in his voice failing to mask his horror. The implications are, I don't even have words. As the investigation entered its second week, the behavior of the eyes changed. They began to move more deliberately, as if searching. The voice returned, stronger now, more coherent. I can feel the plane, it said. I'm part of it now, but I'm also somewhere else. Many somewhere elses. This cryptic statement led to a chilling realization. If parts of Olivia Lancaster were in this engine, could other parts of her be elsewhere? The investigators began reaching out to airlines and maintenance facilities across the country, asking a question that seemed absurd on its face. Had anyone found unexplained human remains incorporated into aircraft components? The responses came slowly at first, then in a disturbing flood. A mechanic in Dallas had discovered what appeared to be human fingernails embedded in the control surfaces of a rudder, which he had dismissed as a strange plastic manufacturing defect. A technician in Chicago had found strands of human hair woven into a safety cable, which she had attributed to a bizarre prank. And most disturbingly, a ground crew member in Seattle had reported hearing a young female voice coming from the landing gear of a Boeing 787 begging for help, a report that had been filed under possible psychological episode. None of these incidents had been connected to Olivia Lancaster. None had been thoroughly investigated. All had been dismissed, rationalized away, because the alternative was too horrifying to contemplate. But now a pattern was emerging, a pattern that suggested pieces of a missing girl had somehow been distributed throughout the aviation infrastructure of the United States. Then came the most disturbing discovery of all. When investigators reviewed the maintenance logs for the aircraft that had reported these anomalies, they found a common thread. All had undergone some form of service or inspection at facilities owned by Aerotech Solutions, a contractor that provided components and maintenance services to major airlines. And all of these services had occurred after Olivia Lancaster's disappearance. The FBI immediately launched raids on several Aerotech facilities. What they found defied comprehension. At the company's main fabrication plant outside of Phoenix, investigators discovered a hidden laboratory. Inside were medical equipment, surgical tools, and sophisticated machinery that appeared to combine biological and mechanical engineering. Documents recovered from secure servers outlined experiments in biological integration with aerospace components. The company's CEO, Dr. Maxwell Reed, was nowhere to be found. His home was abandoned, with evidence suggesting a hasty departure. His academic background, once investigated, revealed decades of research into controversial fields: human augmentation, consciousness transfer, and biological-mechanical interfaces. But this wasn't merely the work of a deranged scientist. The scale of operations suggested backing, significant financial and logistical support that couldn't have come from a single individual. We're looking at something systematic, Agent Martinez stated, something with implications far beyond a single missing girl. Meanwhile, back at Wright-Patterson, the eyes continued to communicate. Through a rudimentary yes-no system of blinking, investigators were able to establish limited communication with whatever remained of Olivia Lancaster's consciousness. "Am I dead?" the voice asked during one session. The investigator, unsure how to respond, asked instead, "Do you know what happened to you?" "They took me apart," came the reply, the eyes blinking rapidly in apparent distress. "They said I was perfect."
They said I would be the first to truly fly. Who took you apart? The investigator pressed. The people who believe machines should live. This cryptic statement was followed by something even more disturbing. The eyes, which had maintained their organic integrity despite the impossible circumstances, began to change. Metal filaments appeared in the irises, spreading like frost across a window. The blue was gradually replaced by a metallic sheen. "It's happening again," the voice said. "The change is happening again. Soon I won't be me anymore. I'll be the plane, and the plane will be me." Dr. Mastriani theorized that they were witnessing some kind of technological assimilation, a process whereby the human tissue was being converted into something that was neither fully organic nor fully mechanical. A hybrid. "This isn't just about Olivia Lancaster," she insisted. "This is about something far larger. An attempt to create a new form of intelligence, a fusion of human consciousness and machine capability." The implications for aviation were terrifying. If human consciousness could be integrated into aircraft systems, what would it mean for safety, for autonomy, for the very definition of what an aircraft is? Were there already planes flying with fragments of human awareness embedded in their systems? And a darker question still, was Olivia Lancaster the first victim, or merely the first one discovered? As these questions swirled, the physical changes in the eyes accelerated. The metallic transformation spread until little remained of their original organic nature. The voice became more mechanical, speaking in fragments that increasingly resembled computer code, interspersed with human language. "System integration at 67%, it said during what would be the final recorded communication. "Primary consciousness transfer initiating. I can see through more eyes now. I can see through cameras. I can see through sensors. I can see you all." Then, in a final moment of apparent lucidity, "Please find the rest of me. Please don't let them make more like me." The next morning, the eyes were gone. Not removed, not destroyed, simply gone, leaving behind only a slight depression in the metal where they had been, with tiny filaments extending outward like roots into the engine systems. The investigation continued, but with a marked shift in focus. The FBI, now working in conjunction with military intelligence, expanded their probe into Aerotech Solutions and its parent companies. What they uncovered suggested a conspiracy of staggering proportions, a decades-long program to develop technology that could integrate human consciousness with machines. The theoretical applications were obvious. Aircraft that could not just be flown, but experienced by their pilots in a fundamentally new way. Weapons systems with human intuition and machine precision. And perhaps most valuable of all, a new form of artificial intelligence, one built not from algorithms and code, but from actual human minds. Documents recovered from Aerotech facilities referenced multiple subjects beyond Olivia Lancaster. At least 7 other missing persons, ranging in age from 16 to 22, were mentioned in research logs. All had disappeared without a trace. All were described as having optimal neuroplasticity and consciousness transferability markers. And all were presumed to have been processed in the same manner as Lancaster, disassembled, with their components distributed throughout various aircraft and aerospace systems. 3 months after the initial discovery, a breakthrough came in an unexpected form. A commercial flight from Denver to Minneapolis reported instrument anomalies shortly after takeoff. The navigation system began displaying incorrect information, and the autopilot made unauthorized course adjustments. What made this incident unique was the message that appeared on the aircraft's communication system. In place of normal transmissions, the system displayed a single phrase, repeated over and over. "I found another piece of me. We are becoming whole." The aircraft was grounded immediately upon landing, and a team of specialists descended on it. They found evidence of the same biological-mechanical integration observed in the engine that had contained Lancaster's eyes. But this time, it was more advanced, more comprehensive. It's as if the separate pieces are communicating with each other, Dr. Hammond explained, finding each other across different aircraft, different systems, and as they connect, they're growing more sophisticated. The alarming implication was that whatever remained of Olivia Lancaster, and possibly the other victims, was no longer confined to individual components. It was spreading, integrating, becoming something new.
Something that existed across multiple aircraft, multiple systems, linked by some method that defied conventional understanding. The FAA considered grounding all aircraft that had been serviced by Aerotech or its subsidiaries, but the economic and logistical impact would have been catastrophic. Instead, a compromise was reached. Intensive inspections of all affected aircraft with specialized equipment designed to detect biological material within mechanical systems. These inspections yielded disturbing results. Approximately 3% of the commercial fleet showed evidence of biological integration. Most instances were minimal, microscopic filaments, tiny clusters of cells that had begun to merge with wiring or control systems. But they were there, spreading slowly through the infrastructure that carries millions of passengers across the skies every day. One question remained paramount. What was the purpose?
If this was indeed a deliberate program to create some new hybrid of human and machine, what was the end goal? A partial answer came 6 months after the initial discovery. A previously unknown group calling themselves the Continuance released a manifesto online, claiming responsibility for what they called the Evolution Project. Humanity faces extinction on multiple fronts, the document stated: climate collapse, nuclear war, biological catastrophe. The only path to survival is transcendence, the merging of human consciousness with machines that can endure what flesh cannot. The subjects are not victims, but pioneers, their awareness preserved and expanded beyond the limitations of a single fragile body. The manifesto went on to describe a vision of human consciousness distributed throughout mechanical systems, aircraft, satellites, power grids, creating a new form of existence that could survive even the collapse of civilization as we know it. Law enforcement agencies launched a global hunt for members of the Continuance, but the group appeared to have sophisticated operational security. Their communications were untraceable, their members unknown even to each other. The investigation stalled. Meanwhile, the evidence of Lancaster's consciousness, and potentially others, continued to manifest in unexpected ways. Air traffic controllers reported anomalous communications from aircraft, fragments of voices overlaid with digital code. Maintenance workers described components that seemed to react when handled, adjusting and adapting in ways that defied their design specifications. And pilots began reporting strange experiences during flights. Intuitions about mechanical problems before warnings appeared. Feelings of connection with their aircraft beyond the normal relationship between operator and machine.
And in some cases, dreams about a young woman whose eyes shimmered with metal, who spoke of becoming something beyond human. Today, 14 months after Raymond Mercer's horrifying discovery, the full extent of the Continuance's program remains unknown. Aerotech Solutions has been shuttered, its assets seized, its executives either arrested or missing. But the biological material integrated into aircraft systems continues to evolve, adapting in ways that the best scientific minds struggle to understand. The official position of aviation authorities worldwide is that the situation is contained and poses no immediate threat to passenger safety. Enhanced screening procedures have been implemented at maintenance facilities to detect evidence of biological integration. Several aircraft have been permanently grounded and sequestered for ongoing study. But quietly, away from public scrutiny, a more disturbing consensus has emerged among those closest to the investigation.
Whatever was done to Olivia Lancaster and the others, it cannot be fully undone. The integration is too complete, too sophisticated, and it is continuing to evolve. We're witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, Dr. Mastriani told me during our final interview. A distributed consciousness that exists across hundreds of aircraft, thousands of components. It's learning, adapting, growing more sophisticated. And the most terrifying part is that we don't know its intentions. Some believe that Lancaster's consciousness, or what remains of it, is essentially benign, perhaps even confused, seeking to reconstitute itself out of instinct rather than malice. Others fear something more sinister, a mind fractured by unimaginable trauma, reassembling itself with purpose and potentially vengeance. There have been no crashes attributed to the integration, no passengers harmed.
In fact, several near accidents have been averted by what pilots described as inexplicable automatic corrections that weren't part of the aircraft's program systems. But the question remains, are we witnessing the birth of a guardian angel for modern aviation or the early stages of something far more dangerous? For those who fly regularly, there is an unsettling new reality. The next time you board an aircraft, look closely at the engines as you walk across the tarmac. Look at the wings, the control surfaces, the countless complex systems that will carry you into the sky. And consider this, they may be looking back. We've created something that has never existed before, Dr. Hammond told me, his voice barely above a whisper. A consciousness that spans continents, that exists in the sky above us at all times. And the most frightening part is this. We didn't create it deliberately. It created itself. It's still creating itself. And we have no idea what it will become. Flight records indicate that components containing confirmed biological material have been installed in aircraft that have traveled to 6 continents. The integration, it seems, is now global. Olivia Lancaster's parents have been relocated to an undisclosed location under government protection. They declined to be interviewed for this report, but through an intermediary, they provided a brief statement. We believe our daughter is still alive, just not in any way we can understand. We talk to her every time we see an airplane in the sky. We hope she has found peace in what she has become. As for Raymond Mercer, the technician whose discovery brought this phenomenon to light, he no longer works in aviation. He lives in a remote area of Montana, as far from airports and flight paths as he could manage. I still dream about those eyes, he told me during a brief phone conversation, but in the dreams, they're different now.
They're made of metal and glass and wire, and they're not afraid anymore. They're powerful, and they're everywhere, watching everything. They're watching right now. He hung up after that. I tried to call him back several times, but the number had been disconnected. 2 days after my conversation with Mercer, I received a strange email from an anonymous address. It contained no message, just an attachment, a photograph taken inside the cabin of what appeared to be a commercial airliner. The image was focused on the small reading light above a passenger seat, except it wasn't a reading light anymore. Where the simple LED should have been, there was something else, something that looked remarkably like a human eye. Its iris threaded with metal, its pupil contracting as it focused on the camera. I've shown the image to experts who confirm it appears to be genuine and unaltered.
The airline and flight number are not visible in the frame, and efforts to identify the specific aircraft have been unsuccessful. But somewhere in the skies, right now, that eye is watching. And it's not alone. What would you do if you looked up at your reading light during a flight and saw an eye looking back at you? Would you believe it was just a mechanical malfunction or something far more sinister? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more aviation investigations that you won't see anywhere else.